So we're actually going to be looking at something pretty hilarious here. So Dave Rubin did an AMA a couple years ago, and an AMA, sorry, is an Ask Me Anything. People will go on Reddit and do these Ask Me Anythings where they say, hey, you can ask me anything, go ahead and I'll answer. And so he did this one on the Are Classical Liberals, which is supposed to be obviously the hub of classical liberalism. That is essentially what subreddits are. If you don't already know what that is, I'm sure you already do. I wanted to go back to this because this is going to serve for context for what I'm going to be talking about in a second. But he got absolutely mauled. Basically, every single response that he gave got responded to with a bunch more responses. And those responses pretty much always got more points than his response. Some of his were downvoted so hard that they actually got hidden. So like someone would ask a question, Dave Rubin would answer, and it would be hidden because it got downvoted into oblivion. And it was an absolute hilarious shit show. So I wanted to read some of these questions here. One of them says, "Thanks for doing this AMA, Dave. You talk a lot about your interview style being about giving guests enough rope to hang themselves, which I think is a great concept. We know that the general population does not have time to research each and every claim that they hear, so therefore people regularly believe fake news. As an example, in your interview with David Horowitz, he said that Obama is a communist, but instead of asking a follow up to explain why he thinks that, you moved on to other topics. Do you worry that misinformation can be spread if falsehoods go unchallenged without further questioning?" Now, quite obviously, that's an amazing question because it is fraudulent, to claim that you're giving your guests just enough rope to hang themselves, and then really what you're doing is you're just letting them on for a monologue. Now, what did Dave Rubin respond with? He said, in that specific instance, he kind of tossed it in mid sentence and quickly moved on to other things. That's his opinion, and you can judge him accordingly, as you obviously do. I like hearing what and how people think, and sometimes berating people isn't the best way to do that. But I'm just good doing this the best way I see how, and this may not be for everyone. I'm really okay with that. And then a bunch of people started responding, like, what the fuck? Like, one person says, well, the person who asked it, he says, thanks for the reply, but could you answer my question? And you don't have to berate guest. It would only require a polite follow up question. So, as you can tell, obviously, he was getting massively just mauled on here. Um, here's one that was kind of important. Someone says, thanks for taking our questions. Rubin loved the show. After the election, you said you would be the first to hold Trump's feet to the fire once he's in office, since so many people were going apeshit before anything happened. I heard you say in your recent stream with Sargon that it's not necessary to criticize Trump because so many other outlets are already doing so. Does this hurt your show's integrity with regards to being about big ideas and building bridges between the various ideologies? It seems to me that your show can be critical of the failings on all sides, but as it currently stands, you heavily focus on the left. Again, another really good question because I can't believe that Dave Rubin actually legitimately, genuinely claimed that he was going to be the first to hold Trump's feet to the fire. And he responds saying, there are literally hundreds of outlets dedicated to attacking Trump 24/7. I didn't vote for him. I brought on people who were for and against him before the election and will continue to do so. As for what he has done so far, I haven't seen much worth going crazy over, so I've tried to stay even keeled. I think the issues of postmodernism and the left are a much bigger danger to the future of Western civilization. Okay, I have to take a pause there, man, because honestly, when people try to use postmodernism, obviously it's a massive buzzword, but it's like this boogie monster that doesn't exist. Like, what the fuck do you mean by postmodernism? What are you talking about? And while people who are progressives will be like, man, we got a lot of issues facing us in the nation, you're talking about 40,000 people dying every year because they don't have access to basic health insurance, people going bankrupt because of medical fees, people going bankrupt, they're going, well, they can't go bankrupt, but they're broke as shit because they're taking these massive student loans to go through schooling and to be able to get a higher paying job. So our higher education is essentially neutering them financially speaking. And so you've got all the, you got people are working 40 hours a week but not able to live, which is pure insanity that anybody can work full time and not be able to live. Is insanity. So the left would be like, those are our problems facing a nation. There's these wars, we're spending too much money, we're killing innocent civilians, etc., etc. What does Dave Rubin say the problem is? Postmodernism and the left. Are you fucking kidding me? For who would that, like, what kind of an imbecile finds that to be more appealing than the left if you're trying to explain to someone why they should, join your cause in fighting for, blank ideas. I'm going to steal the term ideas from Dave Rubin here. I'm going to borrow it. Which one would you side with? Because it's like the left clearly has real shit that they're looking for, and Dave Rubin is clearly just making shit up, which he actually didn't make it up, to be fair. I mean, it was really Jordan Peterson who popularized the term online. In modern times, obviously, postmodernism has been a word that's been used, but in the online sphere, it has been something that definitely, Dave Rubin is now borrowing, and Jordan Peterson had popularized it in the first place. Now, here's another one. This one says, with all the hubbub recently about the Mother Jones article calling you far right, the general confusion about the term classical liberal, and the modern usage of liberal in American politics, why have you chosen to call yourself a liberal, such as the last liberal on your Twitter page, rather than libertarian? It seems to cause a lot of confusion within your audience, and is something that your critics commonly bring up. I worry it's a distraction that holds your show back from bipartisan appeal. Totally correct. The bipartisan appeal thing is different. That's not even something I'm concerned with. I'm just concerned with pure accuracy and legitimacy and honesty, which I don't think that Rubin meets any of those marks. He's being a fraud. He's on purpose saying that he's the last liberal because it gives him more opportunities to expand his show. It gives him more opportunity to make more money, whether it be, Prager basically calling him a tool to his face. But here's what Dave Rubin responds with. He says, I've done many direct messages and interviews on classical liberalism versus libertarianism. Check my sit-downs with Steve Davies, Deidre McCloskey, and Brandon Turner, to name a few. The show itself actually has incredible bipartisan appeal, but I think it's much great than that. I'm assuming man greater than that, because I get emails from literally all over the world, from far left people to far right. The main difference between a classical liberal and a libertarian is I do see some realistic utility for the state, and it's very hard to pin down what libertarians are truly okay with in that regard. So, again, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Classical liberalism is essentially the same fucking thing as libertarianism. And classical liberalism, I'm sure there is a small deviation, but that small deviation does not place it anywhere near the left. So that was just massively embarrassing. So that gives you a good feel for how his AMA went. But I want to talk about his subreddit. His subreddit, if you go on his subreddit, a subreddit is supposed to be where all of the fans of the show go to discuss the content and the person and what they're doing. They're supposed to be their fans. In this case, it's a bunch of people shitting on him. Every video that is posted to this fucking Reddit, this subreddit, is videos making fun of him. I see Sam Cedar's videos. I just saw one of Mike's videos on there from the Human Report. There's just a bunch of videos just straight up shitting on him on there, and it's absolutely hilarious. And it's been like this for a long time now. It's actually been like this for a very long time, which is hilarious. But here, there's a lot of posts asking why people on the Dave Rubin subreddit hate him. I'm going to read you one of these. This one says, why do people on the Dave Rubin subreddit hate him? And someone basically put this comment here. I'm going to read it to you guys because I think it's an interesting explanation. It says, from someone who has been here since around 2016, you are mostly correct about how the subreddit changed, at least from my personal experience. A lot of us were originally on the Rubin train with the first Sam Harris interview. A lot of us were fed up with the small but vocal portion of the progressive movement that takes things way over the top and trades reason for constant outrage to feel superior. We or I wanted to see the progressive movement get back on track to tackle the real issues, and Rubin claimed to offer that. To my everlasting shame, others figured out Rubin's real agenda long before I did. I actually first joined the subreddit when I watched a particularly stupid interview with Rubin and Dinesh D'Souza and cocked my head to the side and furrowed my brow and thought, have I been listening to a complete idiot for months and months now? I then scrolled down to the YouTube comment section, which I never do, and saw instead a comment section of Reddit thread replaced the comment section, and saw quite a few people bashing Rubin's interview style and his tendency to only invite on certain guests. But this was still early on in his channel history. People were still willing to give Rubin a chance. It was definitely forceful but constructive criticism back then. It just kept going though, and it got worse and worse, and Rubin would invite on conservative after conservative and nod along. My personal complete breaking point was when he had Alex Epstein on, who immediately compared climate change consensus among scientists to the Holocaust, and Dave just smiled, laughed, and nodded and said, I see your point, and that's what we're going to do here. At a certain point, the dissension among people still giving Rubin a chance, and the people that were done with him reached a breaking point, and Ahmad banned a lot of the Rubin haters, thus spawning subreddit r Dave Rubin, which I think in a lot of people's minds consolidated the idea that Rubin's fans weren't even up for pretending that this is a place to have discussing big ideas and free speech, which leads us to now most of the people who are banned are back, and Rubin has only gotten worse. Become a sellout for the Kochs, claiming that he would, quote, be the first to hold Trump's feet to the fire, and now he carries water for him. And probably the most damning is his off-camera persona, where he sheds the pretense of being a soft-spoken classical liberal who just wants to listen to everyone's ideas, to become a petty Twitter troll who spouts the most inane nonsense. I can only speak for why I'm still here being a Rubin hater on a Dave Rubin subreddit, and it's because I hope one of Rubin's followers stumbles across the subreddit and comes to a similar realization that I did about him, because Rubin is actually dangerous by knowingly being a stepping stone to much more toxic people by giving them a platform, like Alex Jones, Stefan Molyneux, Milo Yiannopoulos, and many, many more toxic people. So, this is a pretty good explanation of why the Rubin Report subreddit is actually like that. It seems to be the case that basically from the beginning they were fans of the Rubin Report because they saw this contingency among the left that was starting to gain more traction that they weren't a fan of, and thought that Dave Rubin was going to bring a solution to that. But they quickly found out that is not what happened at all. That just didn't occur, which is pretty hilarious to say the least. But also, the funny thing is Reddit politics. Reddit is very liberal as well, so I'm sure that contributed to it as well. But I just found it so hilarious that if you go to it right now, like I'm talking to you, if you go to the Dave Rubin subreddit right now, they will there will literally be a shit ton of just hate posts. It'll just be videos making fun of Dave Rubin, which is the most hilarious part. So I guess if you're bored, go visit it. You know what I mean?